quick job we need to do to start today's video, and that is I need to strip off the whole covers of this tractor, the whole front bonnet covers. Now the reason I need to do that is back about 8 months ago I noticed ever so slight little trickle of coolant coming out of this tractor. Now I took the covers off before and left them off for a week, drove away in it, and it never leaked the whole time the covers was off. Put the covers back on a few days after, I noticed the leak again. It has got worse over time, definitely has got worse, to the point where I'm constantly topping it up with water. Now at this time of year, or in November, water is not what you want to be topping a tractor up. You need to be putting coolant into it for the obvious reasons of frost. Summertime it didn't cause any harm. Just give you an idea here, in a kind of a dark area, you see that rust? That rusty stuff there? And that's where the water does run down. The coolant never showed that, but once the coolant kind of dissipated and it's just water, you can see the way it kind of leaves a rusty colour the whole way down the block of the engine. So, with the two side bits off, by the way, I have the loader propped on top of a bale because I do need to get it up to keep this yoke out of the way so I can get these bolts loosened. Get it off here, have to loosen this by, disconnect our lights. Now, should lift off now. One final thing I need to do, if you can see it, is I need to remove that hood of the air cleaner, and to do that I need to loosen a jubie clip that's in there. I'm just trying to see, where is it coming from? I'm almost sure it's coming from that thermostat housing, because you can see the rust. The way it's there, but it's dry now at the minute, but you can see the rust where it is and the height that it's up, and to me that's just around that seal that's on that thermostat housing, and that's what's doing it. It could even be on the hose. I'm not going to know the true answer of it until it starts to leak. I'm just going to keep an eye on it now for the next couple of hours, and if that's where the problem is, whether it's the thermostat housing or just the hose that's gone down on it, both of those should be relatively easy to fix, and that's the good news. There's another thing I don't like. Kinking that pipe. The only thing I will have to put back on now is this, when the bonnet cover is off, to stop water from going down into the air cleaner, which is there in front of you. Otherwise we can plough on to our next job, which is stripping down this pit. I have my hat on because my ears has found it. I want to open this cover, or open this pit I should say. Before we do this, we've tried a few different ways of covering our pit. As you can see, quite obvious, we have the green net on here, which we've used now for the past, I think, 3 years. Yeah, it's the 3rd year. Unreal the way time goes by. Just to recap, normally we would have put 3 black covers on our pit and then tyres matted together as tight as we could get them, and that was our pit covered. We always would have a bit of waste along the sides, especially this side here, which I think we're going to have again this year. But we'd always have that bit of waste. A lot of the times here it's very hard to roll it right, very hard to seal it right as well. This side tends to be better because it's not as exposed to the prevailing wind and the rain that's driven from the far side. We didn't use any covers across the walls during that time when we covered the pit like that. Then we changed over to this way of doing it, and the first year, covers over the walls, 2 black covers, clean seal underneath, and then the bags and the green net instead of the tyres. When we opened it, if you're following the channel, we had one of the best pits we've ever had on this farm. It was lovely stuff, and yeah, don't think we'll ever have it as good as that, but we had plenty of hands and plenty of help. The next year we kind of replicated that, although I made a mistake where I didn't put the clean seal on. I wasn't here, alright, don't blame me too much. Clean sealing was all rolled out as well before I got back with 2 new covers, and we just finished it off. It turned out alright. Wasn't as good as the year before, but for the way we covered it wrong, our own mistake, it seemed to be alright. But this year, everything's right, bar the fact we didn't put the covers over the walls. The covers over the walls on these style pits, well, it's difficult. With that safety rail, it's quite high here, having to come across the wall, and if there's a wind or anything at all, it's impossible for one man to do that job on his own, and getting the help isn't always as easy as you might imagine. And I didn't have it that time, and the silage was just coming on top of me real quick. So it'll be interesting now to see, will it make a difference? Because we rolled the devil out of this pit this year. Conditions were perfect, lovely and dry. My predictions, myself, before we open it, is that we're going to have a bit of waste, a nice wee bit of waste on both sides, more so on this one. I'm seeing a soft spot here. I don't think it'll be that bad, but it's definitely going to be there, judging by the way that has sank down. I have to re-record this part of the video, so I'm sticking it in here in the middle. You're going to see a hole in our silage pit where I've started to use some of it, and by the end of the video you're going to see that hole actually been taken out of it. So I'm having to film this part days later than when you'll be watching the next part, if you get me. So the reason being is I set the camera on time lapse for the last clip when I was taking off the covers, and then when I picked the camera up to show and talk about what the pit actually looked like, it was still on time lapse. So I was rambling on like a rabbit in heat. So my first impressions, what I would have been explaining, was the disappointment that I had. There's a nice bit of waste across the front of this pit. I knew there'd be some over here, but it was a little bit more than what I had assumed by looking at the pit before I opened it. On this side as well, you can see the blackening here. And it's just the same. This side and that side were more or less the same. And again, disappointed to see so much. Would have expected this, and that's just water that runs down here. It's a very, very hard place to seal. But having it come across here was kind of a mystery at first to me. So I've worked out what I think caused this. I'm pretty sure I have the answer to it. And that is not enough weight on the pit. Not enough weight pushing down the pit. Now you remember, the very beginning, when you first would have watched this channel, I had tyres. Just conventional tyres and black covers. The tyres were matted together, so you had a lot of weight, and then when they'd fill with water, you'd have extra weight pushing down on the entire pit. We used to put tyres down the whole back of it as well. When we changed over this system, we also changed by putting covers over the walls. And the covers over the walls now, to me, showed their importance. When you don't have the weight on the pit, you need to make sure that air cannot get in, because if the air does get in, it can travel underneath the cover more because you don't have that pushing down force. So our first 2 years of using this way of covering had covers over the walls. And this year, by not putting the covers over the walls, is why we got the amount of waste that we did across the front. Air was travelling underneath the pit, and it's air that caused this issue. You can look where some of the bags actually sat, and you can see the different colour of silage. Even here, you can see the different colour in the silage. Just by having that little bit of weight on, the air wasn't fit to penetrate into it. Now I will add as well, and you'll see this later on in the video, that the silage itself is actually very nice. When I filmed it that day, I had no sense of smell yet. I hadn't got it back from the dose that I got. But my sense of smell is definitely back now, and that is lovely silage. It's not dry like I thought it was originally. There's plenty of moisture. If I squeeze it here with one hand, there's plenty of moisture in that silage. And it sticks to your hand as well, so it's nice stuff. Part of this channel is not to sugarcoat anything and to show things that don't work as well as the things that do. This didn't work this year. But I'm 99.9% sure we won't have an issue next year, because we will have the covers over the walls. And I would say if anybody's thinking of changing over to the bag system like we have, it's so much cleaner and so much handier, and you'll get an awful lot more help, which I found. People like to actually help for a change because no one liked the water being splashed up in their faces with the tyres. But I would say if you are doing this system, you must have covers across the walls. You must stop that air from getting in. We had it well sealed on both sides. We had bags as tight. I'll actually show you here if you want to see it. They're there the whole way up along that cover. That's the advice I can give you from 3 years of trying this, is to put the covers over the walls if you're going to do it, and that will eliminate the extra need for the weight that the tyres would have. Anyway, so that's that part filled back in again. Let's get back to the video. Right, we're back at this tractor here. It's been started this morning and running for a wee while just to heat it up, and then I've left it sitting in the hope that we'd see some water run down the side, and it's doing what it has done several times, and that is, as soon as you take the covers off, the problem doesn't show itself. We're going to go with this housing here because it looks to me where the rust is coming around it, and that is a common enough issue. You know, it's expanding when it's warm, and then it's cooling down, it's retracting, and that's what's letting the water just kind of seep out. So there's our hose. There, that's the one we need to get off. There's a leak in the water coming now. So a bucket underneath to catch all that, hopefully it will. There we go. There we go. And by the way, in case anyone asks, I have the loader propped. It can't go anywhere. But here we have 2 pipes going up into the top of the cab, which is probably running the air conditioning and heating, and I want to loosen them off as well. I want to get every bit of water out of this tractor and just keep it as pure coolant and nothing else. The next thing to do is probably take this hose off here. Right, I think we have it. Not much space, but it loosens. Which come off. That's the next thing. Let's get a wee tap of a hammer. Rubber mallet, just a couple of little taps, very gently. The idea is not to force it up from there, the idea is just to keep that screwdriver there. And when I pull again it might loosen a wee bit. And it did. There it is. Now, this is the culprit. There is your thermostat. You can see it there into that, that's where it is. It's different on these. On other tractors I've worked on, you could lift off the housing and you'd put a new thermostat, just the thermostat had lift out, and you can pop a new one in. But this, it's all one unit. All rusty, which is naturally enough from all the water, but whether it's working or not, I was told, a friend of mine who works in Massey told me, you know it's working if your temperature gauge in your tractor is working, which it is. It's registering the temperature. So I'm going to give this a really good clean up first. So here's our housing back on again. I put a tiny little bit of grease on the new O-ring just to kind of help it to pop back in. Stick our pipe back on. I don't see any holes in our pipe. Our pipe looks actually in very good condition. And actually I'm going to turn this doobie clip around so it's facing the right way this time. Make it easier for the next time it comes off. So by squeezing this pipe, it helps to force the coolant around, get rid of all the air bubbles. It's going to take a wee bit of time, but I can hear it bubbling as I'm doing that. And I'll do that now for the next few minutes until that pipe starts to get a bit more firm, and then we'll have a look at our level again. I've no doubt we'll probably have to top it up again. So just as I'm filling this again, I filled it now for the 4th time, and it's still taking water. I noticed this time when I filled it a bit fuller that we've water leaking from this pipe. And this pipe is coming in here to the top of the radiator, and that pipe there is leaking. So leaking right down where the rust was as well. I might be able to just shorten it and put that piece on and stop that bit of leaking that's happening. Right. I might just hold it for now until we can get a new pipe for it on Monday. Right, I have a running here now this last wee while. And I have the heater going full whack as well. I don't see any leaks here. So what I'll do is I'll leave all the covers off. Even the cover off the bottom pipe here as well. Leave everything uncovered. I'll use the tractor for the next 2 days, 3 days. And that's when I know from when it warms up, it cools down. That'll tell me if there's any leaks or not. Alright, well, we're back at it here, and I've been running it for the past, 5 days now, at least 4 or 5 days. And there's no water they can see leaking from anywhere. So I just want to button the whole thing up. But before I do that, I've got the new pipe now. I went up to Massey there this morning and picked up a new pipe. After taking this cover off, because that pipe there was completely kinked. It sits like that the whole time, and that's coming out of the bottom of the reservoir tank, so that's not a good job, especially when it's completely kinked over, nothing's getting through it. It's got extremely soft, that pipe, as well, so we're going to replace that as well and just do the thing right. And I probably need let's see, an 8 and a 7. Right. Only a wee bit laying in the bottom of this tank, so not be a whole pile. Another one off. Let's up the other one on. There's a Juby clip in here, which is in an awful bad spot. I'm going to try my best to get the thing off. It's going to leak some coolant, but I'm hoping I can change the thing over quickly enough, not leak too much. Alright, it's done, and not an easy job, especially in this old cold wind that's blowing here behind me, but it's done and it's in, and that should keep that whole thing right. I'm going to put the guards and all back on. That Juby clip was real hard to get in at, but it doesn't matter, we still got it tightened. It would have been much handier, I suppose, if I had done this pipe before I put that one on, but I didn't realise it was damaged. Anyway, it's fixed now. There's a mount in here underneath. Normally mounts here. Actually, it was too far over at that point, because that's what was kinking the pipe. It's been pulled over here, so I'm just going to drill a wee hole here exactly where it sits, so it's under no pressure, and fix that mount on, and that should be 100%. Bingo. So now we have our hose all connected up there now, and this is all supported, so it can't move, it can't vibrate, it's not hitting again the water pump, it's not kinked down there, and it's not in a position where it should get kinked, and that should be our job finished. Right, we're back at this tractor, and problem's not fixed. We came back out the following morning, and there was a pool of coolant on the ground. Good thing is the covers were still off it. In fact, I found our leak, an awkward spot. But if you look in there, do you see a hole going into the top head of the engine? That pipe there sits into that hole like that. Pushes just in, it's a push fit, and then it bolts on here, and the water flows through it into the head. And this is the pipe here, an O-ring there, and there was an O-ring there. But this pipe, if you look at it, is all crunched in here. Now it's supposed to be like this the whole way around, sealed, and the O-ring fits in, and then it's just a push fit, and it's the bolts that go on this side to keep it pushed in. But as you can see here, the way it's all crunched in and broken off here, so you have a huge gap here, and no O-ring is going to stop that from leaking. I'm surprised it wasn't leaking much harder. Don't know why that happened. It's kind of a hard plastic, this, it's not a steel pipe, but why that crunched in like that, well, I don't know. But anyway, that is a problem. I'm glad that I was fit to find it. So I'm going to put this all back together, a brand new pipe here, with O-rings and all on it. Straight in here. A bit fiddly. Not much room, as you can see here yourself. It's just tip of the fingers job. And that's lined up there now. Just push it in. I have Vaseline on it, but that I have to use a magnet to actually get the bolts into the holes. So let's put this pipe on now next. On this end, because I'm going to be touring it like this, and it mightn't just line up exactly where I want it and be tight, I put some pipe compound onto it, and this hairy stuff that you see, that's just flax, and it will just leave it that we have a better bond, and hopefully no leaks. I don't think it'll leak anyway, but just as a little safety precaution. No harm to put it on it. I had it there anyway. There we go. Right, that's all back together again. Fingers crossed that's the end of our leaking problem. It's time to put in some silage. So I'm just after pulling back and sweeping up all the leftovers for the last, that's probably 9 bales was put in. So it's not an awful lot of waste, just a wee bit of weeds and stuff mostly. I will get a test on it, and I will share the results of the test. We'll wait a wee while till we get into the pit a wee bit. But that silage there, colour and everything. Cows are munching it into them. But when you go over to the face of the pit now, it's going to look messy until I get a face put on the pit. It's always messy when you take the first few grabs out of it. But there is what you're looking at there, and there is nothing wrong with that. Silage pit is always a talking point in every farm. It's an important thing. Everybody wants the silage to be good because it kind of sets the stone for your winter time. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there for the day. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Till the next one, talk to you again.